to be available on call in this room. So, as far as first quarter 21 is concerned, ONGC has compiled its financial results for the quarter ended 30th June 20, which have been reviewed by statutory auditors. The financial results have already been released on 1st of September, that is yesterday, through a press note and sent to the stock exchanges. These have also been sent to the analysts who are there on our mailing list. Let me give a brief synopsis of the results. The company has earned a net profit, that is profit after tax, of rupees 496 crore during the first quarter 21, as against rupees 5,980 crores during the first quarter of previous fiscal. This translates into a decrease of rupees 5,484 crores, which is a reduction of around 92%. The decrease in net profit during the current quarter is on account of lower sales volume, which is marginally lower, but largely because of the lower crude oil price realization and lower gas prices also, and our other income has also been lower. But major contributor, as you would see later, is the lower crude oil prices. Sales volume for Q1 of this fiscal has decreased by rupees 13,522 crore, which is a reduction of roughly 51%, and is at 12,934 crores during this quarter, against 26,456 crores in the corresponding quarter of the previous year. The sales volume in the current quarter has decreased mainly on account of lower sales revenue by crude oil. In fact, 9,817 crore is attributable to lower sales revenue from crude oil. Natural gas revenues are lower to the extent by 2,221 crore, and value-added products are short by rupees 1,650 crores. The billing, that is net of VAT and CST billing price for crude during the first quarter of current fiscal was $28.72 per barrel, as against 66.32 barrel in the same period of last year. And if we talk of this actually translates to a decrease of $37.60 per barrel, and in terms of percentage, this is a reduction of 57%. The exchange rate of rupee versus dollar stood at 75.86 rupees to a dollar versus 69.56 in the first quarter of FY20. Thus, the realization of crude oil in rupee terms stood at rupees 2,179 per barrel during the first quarter of this fiscal versus rupees 4,613 in quarter one of previous fiscal, which actually also amounts to reduction of rupees 2,434 per barrel in INR terms, and actually this is lower by around 53% compared to the previous reference. The amount of profit petroleum has consequently decreased by rupees 211 crore. This is a reduction of almost similar magnitude of 55%, from 383 crores to 172 crore in Q1 of this fiscal. The decrease is mainly at RJ1 90/1 by rupees 143 crore and PNT by around 80 crores. The operating expenditure has decreased by rupees 626 crore. This is a reduction of 13.1% from rupees 4,784 crore in Q1 of previous fiscal to rupees 4,158 crore in Q1 of FY21. The decrease in Q1 FY 21 is mainly on account of decrease in workover expenditure, which has come down by 74 crores, repair and maintenance by 102 crores, mainly at Western Offshore, manpower expenses by 110 crores due to decrease in traveling, training and other staff-related expenses. Part of it is attributable to whatever restrictions have come in the wake of COVID. Transport expense by 72 crores, consumption of materials by 242 crores, pertaining mainly to the Dahej plant, where actually we purchase LNG for the purpose of consumption at C2, C3 plant. This has been partly offset by increase in CSR expenditure, and as you would know, we contributed 300 crores to the latest fund set up by Government of India to PM CARE Fund, and the transportation of oil and gas mainly at Western Offshore, rupees 34 crores. The finance cost has decreased by 150 crores. That's a reduction of 31.36% from rupees 646 crore in previous fiscal Q1. It has come down to 492 crore in this quarter. This decrease is mainly on account of decrease in short-term loans and commercial paper borrowings. Actually, it's a function of both the magnitude of borrowings as well as the rate. We have started getting very, very low prices in terms of interest cost. DD&A cost for Q1 FY21 stood at 3,822 crore rupees as against rupees 3,738 crore in quarter one of previous fiscal. That actually translates to roughly an increase of around 2%, and in absolute terms, it's an increase of 84 crores. The increase is due to increase in depreciation by rupees 83 crore, increase in impairment by 347 crore, and decrease in depletion by 346 crore. So the figure is within 2% percentage points. Increase in depreciation is mainly due to implementation of Ind AS 116 and depreciation on addition of other plant and property, plant and equipment. The decrease in depletion is mainly at Mumbai Offshore by rupees 541 crore due to decrease in production and upgradation of reserves as on 31/3/2020. The increase has been partially offset by rupees 309 crore due to downgradation of reserves at Assam Asset and other onshore fields, which actually has consequently resulted in higher depletion. During Q1 of this fiscal, the statutory levies stood at rupees 2,981 crore as compared to rupees 6,237 crore in Q1 of previous fiscal. That's a decrease of rupees 3,256 crore, and roughly of the same magnitude as the oil prices. This is a reduction of around 52%. The decrease in royalty on account of crude, rupees 1,529 crore, and cess by rupees 1,552 crore is mainly attributable to decrease in average selling price of crude from rupees 34,517 per metric ton to practically less than half at rupees 16,373 per MT in Q1 of FY21. Well, friends, with this, I finish my briefing of the first quarter results in financial year 2021. We'll be very happy to take questions from you. We would request you to restrict your questions mainly on financial results. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we will open the floor for Q&A interactive session. For participants, if you have any questions, please press 0 and then 1 on your telephone keypad and wait for your line to be unmuted. I'll repeat. To ask a question, you need to press 0 and then 1. First question of the day we have from Aniket Parekh from JP Morgan. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Sir, For the first question is that the board has taken large approvals to raise funds. Now, sir, can you walk us to what is the requirement of this funding in terms of capital spend, and what is the company's view? And second, how should we look at the balance sheet? Because on a standalone basis, ONGC has always been cash rich. So should we now look forward to ONGC adding more debt on its books?
Okay, I think that's a good question because it did create a bit of confusion when that statement was submitted in stock exchanges. Let me put it this way. Actually, we have had number of approvals as far as the borrowings were concerned. So there was one approval which we obtained in 2017 AGM, which was for the purpose of issuing the secured debt to the extent of 25,000 crores. So that, and then when we took over HPCL in January 2019, there was further enhancement in the debt raising capacity. So that was resolution number 2. So then we issued an EMTN also. There were another set of board approvals. So what we have done this time is that we have, since there is a substantial change in the regimes and requirements and compliances, some of the compliances which were required in 2017 are no longer required, and some of them have been upgraded. So what we have done is, we have done nothing different but taken all the previous approvals and merged all of them into one document. So just to allay the apprehension, there is the number one, this limit is no more than what we were entitled to do the previous day. It is just an integrated or aggregation of all the approvals, 3-4 approvals which we have had, and we have put them in single resolution so that number one, the board is fully aware, and from corporate governance perspective also the limits are revisited. So, so as far as rupees 45,000 crores overall limit is concerned, it was a pre-existing limit, probably in 3-4 approvals, which has been brought in single approval. So it's an aggregation process. So as far as what we are talking today, our debt position remains on a standalone basis perfectly healthy. In fact, we are at around debt equity ratio of around 6 to 7% or so. And at consolidated level also we are comfortable. So, and there is no immediate plan of anything as of today. And that's the point.
Understood. And so just to follow up from there, in this context, and given the view that oil remains at $40-45 for the next couple of years, so can you give us a broad overview of the capex plans at the standalone and the consol entity for this year and next year? What is the broad capex plans, and where does the company intend to spend?
Okay, so company has been spending, let's say, around 30 to 32,000 crores on an annual basis. We had planned to spend some 32,000 crores plus as far as ONGC is concerned for the current fiscal also. But I believe that COVID itself will put restriction on the quantum of activities we can pursue during this current year. We have had run a quick test of what actually may not be possible, but even if we want it, because practically, as far as quite a few of our projects are in open, places, so and some of them are also affected because of international, supply chain dynamics. So consequently, some of the projects are likely to get delayed, and consequently, the capex flow or the money to be paid for them would actually get shifted to the next year. So when we did a quick analysis, we thought that that figure of 32,000 plus will come down to 26,000 crores plus. That is one part of it. And as far as OPEX is also concerned, there are going to be decreases in the on the OPEX side also. We believe that we would be able to have some savings on OPEX side also. So these are the quick estimates. So as such, even if we were not to make a conscious effort to reduce the capex, in fact, that has not been made. because India does not have luxury of too much of oil. So we are not in the same situation as some of the other entities globally. But as it is also, given the time period lost and given the disturbances in international supply chain, as it is also, it is likely that capex will get reduced by around 6,000 crores.
Understood. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Thanks for your question. Next, we have Nakita Gupta from Bank of America. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. So my question is on the KG-98/2 gas. So could you tell us how much gas are we getting as of now, and at what rate is it being taken?
So I'll request one of my colleagues to answer the question, Mr. Rajrishi Gupta.
We started this production in February, March of last financial year, and it was a trial-based testing for one of the wells, which has been completed and it was running. However, due to COVID situation, the GAIL offtake was stopped during this period. So we are completing the other wells in the meantime, and as soon as GAIL starts offtake, the production will resume. But from the first well, on a trial basis, the production was 0.24 MMSCMD per day.
And so what rate? What is the price?
Price can I? Price I would not like to share, but this is a pricing and marketing freedom. So we are getting good price in the market, and we are happy with what contract we could enter into for the long term.
And so just on this gas prices being, there is a possibility of them going lower in October. So will it have any impact on the volumes of KG data?
So it has to be looked at this way that for oil and gas projects, actually they are long lead time projects. So when you have already spent and made commitments as far as capex is concerned, then variable cost of production is much lower. So it does not make sense to stop the production midway simply because prices are likely to be lower. And as far as what you are probably referring to are the prices of nomination gas. Also, since LNG prices have been low, there would be an impact on the ceiling also. But we are also hopeful that entire issue of pricing relating to gas should be under active consideration of the relevant authorities, and at some time needs to be got addressed. Because today different molecules from different fields, depending on the source, they are getting priced through different regimes. And consequently, there is no long-term certainty for any investor to look at the price which he can realize from the gas business. So we believe that there will be low prices will also stir thinking on this part. And probably there will be some freedom, some deregulation on this account. Consequently, upstream should at one or the other point be able to expect a price which is remunerative and pays for the investments which have been made. So low prices actually could end up being a brother which gives scope for rethinking on the policy front.
Got it, sir. And another small question, sir. We've not adopted the lower tax rate yet. Sir, could you give the amount of MAT credit that we have, and also your views in whether we will adopt it or not likely in this year also?
Okay, so actually we have had MAT credit, and don't hold it against me if I'm wrong with the figure. In last year, actually, if I remember correctly, it was of the order of magnitude of around 5,000 crores. So if our preliminary assessment for that figure was that we would need to take a review on the matter by around December accounts this year. So because it is dependent on so many factors, including what prices hold from going forward basis. Prices had touched $15-16 per in a particular month, and they have revived to plus 45 also, or plus 40 in any case. Now from this point onwards, whether they stay here, they go up, and what is the tax implication, that is something we plan to look at once we are clear about earnings by third quarter. So round about the December time frame, we will start looking at whether we need to make a transition or not. That's the timeline.
Got it, sir. Thank you.
Next, we have Sabri Hazarika from Emkay Global. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Actually, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, of course, on your cost. So the cost has seen a substantial drop, around 50% drop QOQ, and YOY also around 20%. So how much of this drop can you attribute because of COVID situation, and how much because of lower oil prices induced savings?
So actually, let me answer the last question first, which is the easier one. Around 31% of our top line goes in two major statutory levies, which is royalty and cess. So consequently, since the prices have been low, so the 31% element or 32% element of it has been low. So that's a very, very large impact. Second is that as you know, the COVID has reduced the movement to the bare minimum, and the supply chain in certain respects has also been challenged, requiring people to come out with imaginative solutions as far as delivery of products and services are concerned. What impact COVID is going to play on a going forward basis is anybody's guess, because everybody is entitled to his opinion. My personal opinion would be, this may not be organizational opinion, that the world has changed forever. Whenever COVID actually situation relaxes, still people will be very reluctant to travel. Technology will become the mainstay, and consequently the cost on this account will come down drastically. Internally, I can tell you for ONGC itself, we have already launched a major initiative to create a scenario where all our projects are able to operate in kind of location agnostic scenario. For example, if something similar happens in future, so the at least support services, entire support setup in, let's say, one example, if I pick up in Assam, should be able to operate from anywhere in the country. So that's the kind of technological leap we are intending to make within next 6 months or so. In fact, we have tested our systems. I believe around 95% of it we were successful, and people were able to operate from home and it still effectively discharge the function. So we are already there, but the gap between 90 to 100% and a lasting, one is responding in a crisis, another is creating a lasting culture of change that will happen within a year or so. So we will be, for all practical purposes except for the people in the field, we will be location agnostic in a year or so. So that's what I'm saying. In our own context, which is considered to be a very brick and mortar context. So for rest of our value chain, the changes expected are far more dramatic, which will expectedly result in savings as far as cost is concerned. But some of these are my thoughts, and I trust going forward basis there would be substantial savings in terms of manpower, improvement in supply chain and all.
So, sir, if I look into your expense leaving say statutory leaves, if I look into other expenditures, exploratory dry well write-off, and say for example depreciation, these are three of the major P&L expenditure heads. So you had a close to 20,000 crore of other expenditure in FY20. So this just for the quarterly fluctuation. Now, so against this 20,000 crore of say other expenditure, and possibly around 7,000, 8,000 crore was dry well write-off, and another 18,000-19,000 crore was DD&A. How would you see it in FY21-22 if you had any rough cut estimate, rough cut guidance on this? These three heads in particular.
Okay. So I think DD&A and I are more related to the historical cost, because the figures have been capitalized in the past. As a result, actually, there may not be a substantial decrease in the elements of this kind, which is DD, A, and I. As far as rest of expenditure are concerned, which are on current basis, for example, starting from workover expenditure, water injection, pollution control, which are incurred based on the contracts entered into recently and directly, these are expensed. There will be a substantial reduction. What we also think is that wherever there are certain items like unallocated rig cost, etc., with the improvement in technology and the reduction in the, let's say, footprint size of administration, this should also come down drastically, while that has been a cost in the past. So whatever are the current expenses, DD and I will probably remain the same, or because of the capitalization of some of the projects costs which are in capitalization stage, it could in fact also end up going higher. But we won't mind that, because then it's a function of production being sustained at the same level, because ultimately it will have something to do with that. But rest of the elements which are current expenses, they are likely to come down significantly.
Right. And just two very small questions. First is, what was the debt level, standalone debt level as on June end?
So we did declare that when we made the COVID announcement. So it's not materially different from that. Just a minute. I mean, since
14,000 crores. Right?
Yeah, it was around 15,000 crores.
Sure.
Yeah, around 15,800 crores also. 15,812 to be specific.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you have paid Profit Petroleum in Panda Mukta Tapti. Now that it has been like assigned nominated block pricing, so still the Profit Petroleum regime is there.
That part you reminded me. Actually, I'll check. It actually is there, but I need to cross check. The reference was for last year. I trust that in last year we had paid. As far as from 21st of December, we are not paying it. So it was more in context of what we did versus the previous first quarter of previous fiscal. That explanation was more in terms of why it was higher in the previous fiscal.
Right, got it, sir. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Okay, have a nice day. Thanks.
Next we have Kaustubh from Axis Capital. The line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for providing me the opportunity. Just a couple of questions here. Were there any incentives you have received from the government during the lockdown, or do you expect to get any incentives as we move out of it? That's the first question. And second question is, if you can give me what is the nameplate production capacity of our total products, other than the crude and oil, crude and gas production, which is LPG, naphtha, C2, C3, on the FKO and other products. So if you can give me that number, what is the nameplate production capacity there, and what are the plans here to ramp up?
Okay. So I think first question, as far as the support from government is concerned, so government, immediately when prices fell to below 20 kind of thing, there was a lot of consultation with the government and different organs within the government, and there was a very active engagement, and there was sympathy that upstream operations need to be supported and they deserve the support. So that process had started. Our request for support on cess and royalty, which was widely covered by press, not materially different from what was covered by the press, how much was expected. I would not confirm or contradict any one of them. But the proposal was sent and it was under active consideration. I believe that the same is still under active consideration, but the only factor could be that the prices have revived since then. So it may not, in the opinion of the relevant authorities, have received the same kind of attention which it was likely to receive, let's say, in April time frame. That is point number one, and I am making it very clear comment. Second point is that the second aspect which I will tell you is that notwithstanding this part, the progress has not been there, nothing concrete has come. Yet, government is making all out efforts to streamline the functioning of upstream E&P sector. So, and you would have heard, government has taken very active steps to create a gas exchange. They have constantly pursued the revival of activity in all projects. Ministry of Petroleum is putting a lot of emphasis on increase in pipeline capacity in the country as far as gas is concerned. Then through Atmanirbhar Bharat also they are wanting to expand the domestic petrochemical production and all. So government is seized of the matter, and in this respect only I told a little while ago that we believe that as part of this discussion, which is a more of a policy change, we do anticipate that pricing and allocation regimes on oil and gas should be a matter of history after this process is over, and sooner or later different molecules of gas could be entitled to a free pricing, which would be the right way of going through as far as the pricing for gas is concerned. So that's point number one. As far as point number two is concerned, actually our production capacity of these value-added products is directly commensurate with the kind of gas production we have, and largely from offshore. And historically, we have stayed in the range of around 3 to 3.5 million tons. That's the kind of range in which we will operate. We are in process of upgrading some of the units which were set up in the past at Hazira. So yeah, so these could go up by around another 10% when you have the better upgraded facility. We have naphtha production of around 1.3 million tons, LPG of around 1 million tons, and C2, C3 of 1.5 million tons, SKO also. So some effort is going on to upgrade and improve the yield a little bit. And but I think in peak we had done at around 3.64 is what we did it in 2018-19. We believe that we will remain within 10% of it. So even if improvised facilities, if we put, I think we could touch 4 or so. That's likely to be the maximum. But it's a function of how much liquid is there actually in the gas which comes to these installations.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Next we have Ramesh Nirmal from Equity Private Limited. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Ramesh from Nirmal Bang Equities. Good morning, Subhashi. Thank you very much.
Morning.
Yeah. So I just had a couple of questions on the results. One is there is a segment loss in the onshore segment of 193 crores, and it has come down pretty sharply from the fourth quarter. So if you can explain that, be great.
So fourth quarter was largely attributable to the impairment provision which had to be made, and this time we have no further impairment losses. So that's the major reason.
So, but this loss of 193 crores is entirely due to gas, because it's on the onshore field.
193 is actually a mix of losses from different fields. So it is not necessarily gas only. See, our cost of operations and production from onshore is higher compared to the cost from offshore fields. And just to give you a ballpark figure, when we used to say last year, let's say we said, these are roughly ballpark figures, when we said that our average cost is $40 per barrel, actually for onshore it was of the order of around 44 to 45, and for offshore it was 36, 37. So that is how at the end of the day it converged at 40. and with a price of around 60, actually 32% of that was the statutory royalty and cess. So consequently, so onshore actually the cost, if we were to work out on a quick basis, it was $49 per barrel last quarter 4 of FY20, and which has come down to 39.89.
Okay.
Because of majorly because of the change in statutory duty.
Yeah,
this is the function of price.
Yeah, I understood that. So then the next question is on the consolidated segment details. So there also, if you look at the results, there is a share of JVs which shows a loss of 375 crores in refining. So which refinery does it pertain to? Because I thought MRPL is being consolidated as a subsidiary. If you are having a share of JVs showing a loss in the refining, what is that due to?
I think it is referring to MRPL only. There is no other refinery in joint venture. So if there is classification somewhere, just a minute. Then it's actually referring to MRPL.
Okay, fair enough. And if you were to look at your cost of exploration in this quarter, it has come down sharply. So is it because your overall costs have come down, or is it the reduction in the exploration activity?
It's a blended situation actually. See, exploration is carried out in open area, so consequently, the movement is lesser. So that is also a factor.
So do we see it going back to normal levels, or would it be a function of the oil prices and your cash flows?
Actually, see, exploration is quite seasonal in activity. One is if in the field season, actually as it is also comes down. So, but as the situation improves during the third quarter onwards, probably it will pick up and come back to the normal level. But still, actually, you have to understand that the exploration happens in an open area, and there could be certain issues when you send your manpower to open areas, and there may be a little bit of resistance, and we may have to operate under very restricted conditions.
Okay. So one last thought, in the result notes number 4 and 5, one is referring to arbitration related to PMT, and the second is related to the GST which you have paid under protest. Can you give us some thoughts on that, and how do we really interpret that in terms of the potential impact going forward?
So there is no progress, no change in status in both accounts as far as developments during the quarter is concerned, and we do anticipate, based on the discussion, that clarity could emerge on PMT part during the end of this fiscal, or maybe even during the year 21-22. As far as GST is concerned, again, there is no movement on the issue, and the position remains the same.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Congratulations and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Next we have Vidya Agar from ICICI Securities. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning to all. So my first question is on this OPEX decline. So what you are you basically suggesting that is other expenditure which has fallen in Q1, there is room for it to fall further from where we are?
No, I mean, very difficult to comment on each element on an immediate basis.
No, I'm talking about
as you go along. As you go along, I do believe that the supply chain efficiency will improve, and consequently cost should come down over a period of time.
So you are saying that not only it is sustainable, but it could actually go down further.
At least it is sustainable. I would not make any statement to the effect that it could go down further, but it is likely to stay at this level at least.
Sure. And second question was on this KG deep water gas. So just wanted to understand whether how much of your kg this deepwater block volume you tied up with GAIL, and is the pricing linked to the ceiling price? Is it some discount, whatever, to the ceiling price, or what is it linked to is what I was trying to understand. And how much of this volume is tied up with GAIL and for how long?
So I think this specific answer I would not have immediately because but there is one or two formulas being tried. We are coming up with a formula which reflects the market reality, and reality is that LNG remains a kind of competition for this kind of supply. So specific formula detail I don't have presently. It is compliant with as far as the existing commitment is concerned. That is perfectly compliant with the existing framework. That it has to stay within the ceiling. Proposed formula also has the same parameter, except that the constituents of formula are a little bit different. So, but specifics of formula I don't have readily.
And have you tied up most of this volume with GAIL, or?
No. The volume tied up is only for the one well which is being test flowed now.
Okay.
As possible, some of there will be fresh contracts.
Oh, so the new volume, the pricing as well as the volume will be freshly discovered. Who will it will go to, and as well as the pricing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Now, just a couple of other questions. One was on the. Just wanted to find out that if in the first quarter, let's say if your gas volumes had been flat or higher, would actually you have done worse? Because this 15% fall in gas, was it actually a good thing from a results perspective?
No. How can it be? Because
you're not recovering.
Nobody understands it better than you. You are asking this question. Actually, reality remains that most of our expenditure is fixed, at least in the short term. So if you talk in terms of, for example, establishment, we have all our projects running. We were ready to service the same level of activity which we would be required otherwise. So if we were to sell anything more, even at this price, which is not lucrative, which is not what we want, then also our top line would have increased and the expenses would have stayed more or less the same. And especially for, there are two kind of gases, exclusively gas fields, and then there is a kind of fields where we produce both oil and gas. So you don't create any infrastructure, you don't incur separate expenditure purely for gas except the royalty which is very low at 10%. There is no such on gas. So definitely the volume hit would have been a substantial benefit to us. The only problem was that it's not that we reduced, and as you would be aware actually, it was the offtake issue. So suddenly offtake became an issue and the GAIL could not take the volume. And consequently, we had to reduce. It was a forced kind of stoppage of shutdown or lowering of the production. Not to our liking. Frankly speaking, we would have only benefited from it had we continued.
So basically, you're saying that what you saved, which is royalty and probably depletion would have been higher if your volume was higher. So that would have been lower than the gas price which you are getting right now.
Definitely. It goes without
saying. So as your volume recovers, your profitability will improve.
So that's the reverse of what we said earlier.
Yeah. And lastly on OPaL, just wanted to understand two things. One is how was their utilization in first quarter, and if you could share some number on EBITDA, profit or loss. And secondly, as far as OPaL's feedstock is concerned, how does it break up into is there some domestic gas used, and otherwise what is the domestic gas, contracted LNG, any spot LNG used? If you could give us a broad composition of your feedstock consumption.
Okay, so I think first question is how did OPaL do during this pandemic? One is that OPaL was one of the few plants which continued operating during this pandemic. So there were probably only two plants which continued operating, and OPaL was one of them. It did phenomenally well during this period. In fact, it benefited because immediately after some reduction in the lockdown restrictions, their offtake picked up and margins also improved a bit, which is reflected in the fact that their Q1 losses during the previous fiscal, which were 511 crores, came down to 317 crores. So that is what is also reflected in our group accounts. As far as performance is concerned, if you remember, from February onwards, the plant has capacity and potential to run at around 100% capacity. It has operated at that capacity as and when required. COVID has been a disturbance because offtake, entire value chain has been disturbed. So consequently, they even during the period they were operating, they had to reduce to around 45% capacity level. They have ramped it back to plus 90, and they are doing at the same level. So Opal is in a sweet spot when it comes to benefiting from whatever changes happen in the product offtake pattern in the wake of the COVID recovery. So Opal is doing well, and we believe that it will improve its performance in coming quarters. But there was some other question on this. Actually, I forgot. If there is anything else
on the feedstock.
On the feedstock part, actually, 1.95 MMSCMD of gas is allocated domestically, and for the rest, they depend on the market.
So, and this domestic is under domestic?
Yeah.
APM price. And so, any spot LNG?
Yeah. So I mean, for the additional requirements, depending on the kind of variability of production, they do contract LNG from market. So they do spot also, they enter into contracts also. So they try both the combinations.
Okay, thanks a lot. Lastly, sir, any number on debt, standalone debt in June and now, and consolidated debt in June and now?
So I told 15,812 is our debt on 30th of June, which has come down by roughly more than 2,000 crores post that. So as on date, as we speak, it is less at least by 2,500 crores from the figure we had on 30th of June.
And anything on consolidated?
Consolidated debt, just give me a number. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, consolidated debt is around 112,000 crores.
Okay. And sir, lastly on one more for OVL. So OVL at prices in the current quarter, is OVL likely to be profitable in Q2? What is the probability?
I think, 44, 45 is the number on which they will be comfortable. In fact, plus 40 should be a number on which they start making. That's a transition number. Very much.
So if oil stays above 40, then OVL should be in the black.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
That range, you have to take it in a range, but that is the likely situation because it depends which fiscal regime, which country. Because in some of the countries, stake is more, so consequently, upside may not help that much. But in some other countries, if you are getting 100% of it, then it may matter. But since Sakhalin is the major constituency of it, so there the conditions are quite favorable to be contracted. So consequently, it is likely to be 40 or below 40.
Okay. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Next we have Varab Rajan from Systematix. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my question. So my question was on any kind of visibility or guidance you can give on production of both oil and gas and specific to KG Basin separately.
So I have right now in front of me numbers relating to the overall. So 2021 we are likely to do around 22.7 million metric tons in terms of oil versus around 23.93 last fiscal. 1920 actually, just a minute. 1920 actually. So 1920 actual was 23.35 and likely to be around 22.69. And as far as gas is concerned, gas was 24.89, and we are likely to be at around the same level this year also. So that's the situation.
You will have anything on KG Basin development, sir?
KG Basin, I think there will be some disturbance. I don't have the figures right away, but maybe Prakash will provide them.
Many vendors have cited force majeure because of the pandemic, and so there is a delay. We are trying to ascertain how much will be the delay, and we are trying to minimize the effect. But as of now, still the discussions are in progress, and a lot of force majeure vendors are on the table discussing with us.
Actually, international supply chain has got affected far worse than domestic supply chain. So while activity has picked up here, if some piece of equipment needs to travel from somewhere in Europe to India, that has become extremely difficult, and consequently we do not have exact visibility on when these pieces of equipment will come. And then the second issue is also relating to even manpower actually. So since quite a few expats were involved in bringing up the project, now there have been quite a few restrictions in terms of their movement, and at individual level also there is no enthusiasm in traveling, if I were to put it that way. So the opening up would probably improve the situation there.
And sir, in case we expect production to increase maybe 6 months down the line, when are you likely to put the gas on auction for placement? Would it be 3 months before, 6 months before?
Yeah. I think the effort is already afoot, so it should be happening soon.
Okay. Thanks.
We may be calibrating with reference to the kind of impact of these delays on schedule. So that could be the reason. Otherwise, it should be happening soon.
Thanks. Thank you.
Next we have Nitin Tiwari from MP Stock Limited. The line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Thanks for taking my question. I hope all of you are keeping well. So my question was also related to the production level of both ONGC and JV fields and the guidance that you've given. So if we look at the gas production, so for the first quarter we are almost down by about 10% or so. So you have the guidance that you are going to maintain a flattest sort of a production for the entire year. So if you can just help us understand that, how is that we are going to achieve that. Secondly, crude oil production for us has been falling for a couple of quarters now. So, when are we going to see a likely change or a reversal in that trend? And lastly, sir, on the JV side, there has been sharp decline in both crude and gas production. So if you can help us understand a little bit on what is happening on the JV front and specifically with respect to Cane's production, what is the reason that why the production has been weak, and are we going to see any reversal or changes over there? So those are my questions.
So I think starting with gas, actually it is not really the less production, it is a question of less offtake. It was the capacity to consume which actually restrained the production. So entire 10% of it is attributable to that. Second is, as far as oil is concerned, yes, we have, as far as pure oil is concerned, actually we are in the same range, and oil and condensate we are around 3% less. So having said that, actually even otherwise the major uptick in oil production was expected only when KG 98/2 would have come on stream. And today there is a little bit of lack of clarity of exact timelines by which actually that project will come online. So very difficult to point out, but as and when KG 98/2 comes online, that part will get addressed automatically. As far as last question, JV is concerned, JV actually has come as a surprise for us also, because kind of quantum of reduction there is significantly higher than the kind of production profile we have been able to maintain, and that's a discussion going on between two teams, and we will know. Probably, see, low prices were one of the reasons why as to some of the activities might have been shifted. But I am very sure that with 40, 45, nobody actually wants to curtail the production.
So if I understand right, your gas production was basically a function of lower uptake from GAIL. But my question was that we have already lost that time window of 1 quarter. Like, that
goes without saying that, fact of the matter is nobody would have loved to have this situation. Even GAIL would not love to have. But whatever is lost is lost. For example, if we have not been able to carry out some activity, even in terms of survey, now it is lost forever. We can't actually try and capture that activity. So time lost is major. That's a direct COVID impact. I just wanted to add as well, in case of OVL actually, the production is also curtailed in some of the countries because of the OPEC restrictions. So that was also a direct consequence. But I take your point. Yeah, I take your points that there are certain areas where we are not immune to whatever is happening in overall economy. So there is gas offtake is function of what was happening in the industry at that point in time.
Right, sir. So, and in JV production, if I understood you right, hopefully there should be some improvement going forward. That's what you're saying, right? With even prices,
recovery in prices suggests that the attention should come back. Those specific I won't be able to share.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for answering my question.
So we have the last question of the day from Vipul Shah, individual investor. Your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. I just want to know what is our cumulative investment in OVL and what was the profit last year? Because I think OVL is bleeding, and what is your view about incremental investments in OVL?
So our cumulative investment in OVL is we have contributed equity. We are 100% of owner of equity in OVL, 15,000 crores. Beyond that, they have taken loans, and substantial part is guaranteed by us, but that's on balance sheet of ONGC Videsh. Their performance last year 453. 454. Yeah. So last year actually their profit was 454 crores, and prior to that it was 1245 crores. Their profit at peak was 4445 crore also at some point in time. So actually what happens is, let me put actually OVL in context. Of OVL, all acquisitions are through bidding. So when you acquire a property through OVL, actually you acquire that property at full value. Now when prices go down, so let's say the property is acquired at imputed value of, let's say, long-term imputed value of 45.50. So at any price below that, you will tend to lose because you have already made the investment with reference to that. This is unlike ONGC itself, where you grow organically. So consequently, at least in view of the development, your cost of production is lower, and you are able to the net margin made is higher. So even if some projects end up being uneconomical on an overall basis, we make much more money than some other projects. So, but in case of OVL, all acquisitions happen at the relevant pricing regime available at that time, and also those acquisitions are at competitive prices. So they happen at the prices at which oil is trading or long-term projection at the relevant time. So consequently, OVL performance will always have a wide variation depending on the margin it makes above the derived imputed acquisition price.
Pre-impairment income was same for 18-19, 19-20 at 3,500 crores, whereas impairment was 3,000 in 19-20 and 1,500 in 18-19. So the profit came back from 1,500 to 500.
Okay, but what is the thinking on incremental investment in OVL in the scenario that oil prices are likely to stay lower or around current level for the foreseeable future, sir?
So as far as ONGC is concerned, it has not invested beyond its equity investment. Rest are only loans taken on the balance sheet of OVL and guaranteed by ONGC. If there is a good opportunity which makes sense even at these prices, so when prices, let's say, you are already stuck and then prices are, let's say, 45, so any acquisition would be made at least with significantly lower prices only. So if there are good opportunities, then it has to be seen as adding value. Then probably the ONGC could support in terms of raising the funding. Otherwise, at these prices, at 45, nobody is likely to purchase a property at the prevailing price if the equity price is the same. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of OVL going for acquisitions, but that can happen only when the likely oil price at which acquisition happens is significantly lower.
So what is the debt on the balance sheet of OVL and how much of that is guaranteed by ONGC?
So it's close to around 7 billion. Just a minute. So OVL debt is of the order of around 42,000 crores, and all long-term borrowings are guaranteed by ONGC.
So in case of default by OVL, naturally it will become the liability of ONGC.
I mean, giving possibility of default is remote, but what you are saying is right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, and all the best.
Okay, thank you very much.
So with this, I would like to now hand over the floor back to Mr. Subhash Kumar for final remarks. Over to you, sir.
So, ma'am, thank you very much, and we greatly appreciate everyone on the call. Actually, it's a difficult time not only for us; it is difficult time for everybody. So, each one who was there or who is listening, who is interested in our, listening to our performance, thank you very much, and ONGC team wishes all the very best to everybody. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing the session. Thank you, participants, for joining in. That does conclude our conference call for today. You may all disconnect now. Thank you and have a pleasant day.